Hello and welcome to this course on timeline advertising. In this course, we're going to cover how to drive targeted traffic from Twitter with ads that appear in people's Twitter timelines. This course is divided into 3 modules. Module 1 covers campaign objectives and details. Module 2 covers ad groups and targeting. And Module 3 covers creating the actual ad itself and launching the campaign. By the time this course is over, you'll know how to effectively create and launch Twitter ad campaigns for your business. So without further ado, let's dive into the first module. Okay guys, welcome to Module 1. In this module, our expert will be teaching you about campaign objectives and details. So get ready to take some notes and let's jump right in.
Okay, so here we are on the Twitter dashboard. We're going to come up here to Create Campaign. Click Start Over. And let's talk about these Twitter campaign goals. Now, campaign goals or objectives, you'll notice, are taking over advertising platforms. Google, AdWords, Facebook, and a bunch of other ones have chosen to create this step in their ad creation process where you can choose common campaign objectives and then those guide you with hints and tailorizations throughout the ad creation process. We've already seen that with a few of the other big ones. Now we're seeing it with Twitter. And overall, I think it's definitely a good thing, certainly more user-friendly. If you've been doing some of these on your own sort of ad hoc in the past, then you'll probably notice it's a little bit different now. So let's talk about app installs first. App installs is pretty simple. If you have a mobile app, if that's your business and you want to get more people to install it on their phone, literally click a link on Twitter and then that takes them to the App Store for your respective, OS, and then install your app. This is what you're going for. This is your campaign objective. The next one is followers. Now it says on and off Twitter here, but obviously what we're talking about is gauging your campaign success by the number of people who end up following your profile on Twitter. And that's pretty powerful, especially if in addition to your advertising, you also do a lot of organic promotion or organic content on Twitter, and you want to increase the range of that organic reach. Increasing your followers with paid ads is a good way to do that. And tweet engagements. This is a good one to go after if your primary concern is interaction with other Twitter users on Twitter. If you want people interacting with your brand when you tweet. So we're looking at retweets. We're looking at comments, likes, that sort of thing. Those will be what you're measuring the success of these campaigns by. Over here we've got promoted video views. That's pretty self-explanatory. Video, although it's not thought of as the primary thing on Twitter, since there's length restrictions and stuff, is still pretty powerful on Twitter, and video ads are a pretty significant and impactful way to get your message across. Website clicks or conversions. This is probably the most standard issue, meat and potatoes type of campaign goal. This covers sort of everything, especially things like lead generation, right? So you actually want people clicking away from Twitter and coming over to your web properties, namely, a landing page where you're collecting a lead, or if you're doing content marketing, maybe to a content piece with a retargeting pixel, or if you're selling something directly, sales pages, e-commerce stores, product listings, that sort of stuff. All of that is going to come here, and my guess is somewhere around 60-70% of those of you who are watching this video are going to be relying on this one somewhat heavily. App re-engagements. So the app is already installed on their phone, and you want them to click on a Twitter ad that reminds them to log back in and use it. Okay, so if you're running some type of a video game app for iOS or Android, and this is a good way to get those people to log back into that app and play in that game with a nice, maybe a video ad or something. You actually see a lot of people doing this, a lot of companies doing this. What's that one? Clash of Clans is doing that type of thing with ads all the time. In-stream video views, pre-roll. This sounds a lot like YouTube's in-stream video, and that's basically what it is. You're taking other people's content, you're taking existing content, and you're sticking your little video ad at the very beginning of it. It's going to be pretty short, but you get some pretty cool placement there that you wouldn't otherwise get. Awareness. This, you don't really care about the retweets. You don't really care about clicks to your website. You don't even really care about followers. What you want is your brand identity, literally your name, your logo, your identity in front of as many eyeballs as possible. Okay, so this is based on, impressions. Even if people are just swiping by and not really super conscious of the fact that they've just seen your brand, you're sort of building that subconscious top of mind awareness, and this is a good campaign for building that. So now let's go ahead and click on followers. Let's say that we're trying to build a follower campaign so that we can increase our organic reach without having to pay for ads on Twitter. All right, and how it works, this is a little explanation of how things work. You're going to promote your account to build an engaged audience. You're only paying for the followers you gain. So it doesn't matter what type of engagement you get on this post. We could get, 100 retweets and likes and comments and all that good stuff, clicks to our website, pretty much anything. And we're not being billed for any of that. So that's all just extra, That's all just gratis. What we're paying for is just people who click and follow our profile on Twitter. So this is pretty sweet if that's your primary goal. And you've got all the basic stuff here. You've got your campaign name. You've got a start date. You've got an optional end date. So let's talk about some reasons you might have an end date. Let's say you've got a sales quota coming up. An end date might be useful. In fact, an end date in conjunction with accelerated delivery, which will spend your budget faster and try to get your ad in front of more eyeballs in a more frequent and quick way. Those two things could work together quite well. If you've got a live event coming up, an actual physical live event that's happening on a specific day, well, obviously, that's got to end at some point, preferably a few days before the event, so that would be a good time to utilize an end date for your campaign, as well as accelerated delivery. A product launch where you've literally just got a 7-day window. That would make sense to have a start and an end date, and maybe even an accelerated delivery, okay? But most people are probably just going to let ads run evergreen, most brands on Twitter, because it's a part of their actual, day-to-day life, their day-to-day advertising. Then we've got, daily budget. And then we've got total budget, which is optional. So if we want to spend, let's say, $25 per day, and sort of indefinitely, however, we want this particular campaign to run out after, let's say, $2,000, we can configure it in this manner. So after however many days, this will eventually grind to a halt when we hit our total budget, and then we can sort of stop and breathe and look back at the campaign to see how it performed and whether or not we want to change things up a little bit, start a new campaign, use a different approach. So that's pretty much it for campaign details. I'll set this back to standard. We're going to hit next up here, and that's going to bring us to the Ad Groups page, and that's what we'll discuss in the next lesson.
Hey folks, welcome to Module 2. In this module, our expert will be covering ad groups and targeting. So get ready to take some notes and let's jump right in.
All right, so here we are on the ad group page. Now the first thing you'll notice is that some of these variables seem to conflict with the variables on the campaign creation page. However, this is overlap, okay? This is sort of compartmentalization. The idea is you can have multiple ad groups, and so why not compartmentalize and have one ad group with one angle that ends on a certain day, and then have the other one with a different angle take over on a certain day, all within the same campaign. Same thing goes for budget here. You can sort of narrow down and sub-allocate budget to a specific ad group within a campaign if you only want to spend X amount on one marketing angle or one specific type of targeting or something along those lines, but still keep it within one overall sort of umbrella campaign. The next thing here is bid type. Now, by default, it's actually set to automatic bid. If you've done your homework, if you have a pretty solid understanding of the market value of bids for, the various types of engagements or clicks or objectives that you're going for, if you've done your homework, target cost can be something that you can incorporate into your campaign. However, if you haven't and you're new to Twitter ads, it's best if you just let Twitter and their algorithms handle this for you. Then we're going to hit next. This will bring us to our audience page. This is where the magic happens. So our audience page, the first option that you have is if you already have existing audiences, saved audiences. For example, let's say you've got retargeting pixels out there, and you've got Twitter maintaining a list of people who are interacting with your content on the web. you could actually incorporate these right here. We're not going to do that. Demographics. Ideally, before you run any ad campaign, you should have done some market research, or you should already know who your ideal customer avatar is based on all sorts of information. You would take that avatar and then you would use these variables here to match that as much as possible. So age, gender, where they're located, what type of technology they use, and generally speaking, if you haven't done that research, you should try to leave it a little bit broad, okay? So unless you know that your product is going to be more marketable to females, either because of common sense, if it's a female-related product, or you've got market research specifically, that where you actually did the studying, you hit the books, and you found out that males are more likely to buy product X than females. Unless you've done that kind of stuff, you should leave this more or less broad. Down here, you've got an odd collection of different things that you can specify. Locations, that's obviously pretty common. You can choose countries, you can narrow down to states, regions, that sort of thing, even zip codes. However, the rest of these are a little bit unusual. Operating system version is something that you can target by if you only want people using this or that operating system. Same thing for device models. That's pretty specific. Platforms that they're using. Languages, that's not super special. We see that type of thing all the time. And even carriers. They're mobile carriers. So depending on what you're marketing exactly, those might be relevant to you. Most people probably won't end up using these or narrowing down by these ones right here, though. Just language and location could come in handy for most of you. The next thing here is going to be the audience feature. This is where you get into sort of that Facebook style narrowing down of people by their interests, by their past behavior, that sort of thing. So we could, let's say just for grins, we're a piano company. We want to narrow down by people who might be interested in learning to play the piano. And so we're going to go into interests, and we're going to click on music and radio, and we're going to find classical down here, for example, and hit add. And boom, there you go. We just had approximately, what did it say? Music and radio. It'll give you an estimate on the right-hand side. 381,000 people who Twitter has positively identified as having shown evidence of being interested in classical music at some point in the past. Okay, so that's a pretty powerful way to target people. And as you can see, we've got a target summary or an audience summary right here on the right-hand side that changes as you shape and narrow your audience. Now, recommendations is an interesting one. Basically, Twitter will figure out what the most popular hashtags and usernames are based on the audience that you've selected, and then they will incorporate those usernames and hashtags into your marketing for even further targeting. Now, the problem with that for us is we set all of our demographics to super broad. So because we're so broad, I don't know that having Twitter's algorithms go out and find popular hashtags and usernames associated with this demographic is going to be of any use to us at all. So I'm going to leave that turned off, but it definitely sounds like something worth exploring depending on how narrow your audience becomes and how narrow your demographics get. Now, another new feature here is retargeting people who saw or engaged with past tweets. That is a huge, very, very powerful way to sort of spend your ad dollar on specifically people who are already familiar with your brand, so that you're not getting as much in the way of cold looks, but you're getting some warm audience as well. Once we've got our audience all set up and selected, we're going to hit next, and that's going to bring us to the actual ad creative, which is what we'll cover in the next lesson.
All right, welcome to Module 3. In this module, our expert will teach you about creating the actual ad itself and launching the campaign. So get ready to take some notes, and let's jump right in.
All right, so here we are on the actual ad creative page. Now, an ad in Twitter is a tweet. That's important to understand. And what you can do is reach back into past existing tweets and turn those into promotional tweets. Or you could just create one from scratch. Now, in our case, we've got one right here. And you can shuffle, by the way, by organic tweets that you've done in the past, scheduled tweets, and promoted-only tweets. Right now we have a scheduled tweet that happens to exist. We can utilize this as our Twitter ad, and you really want to match your ad copy to what your campaign goals are. So obviously, if your campaign goals had been website clicks and conversions, then you would want some type of a call to action that leads to people clicking and leaving Twitter to go to your site. In our case, we chose followers. So we want more and more followers. And that basically means we want people to look at our ad for a little while, and we want it to speak to them. We want them to answer a question, because if they engage with our ad, for example, by leaving a comment, they'll probably be more likely to hit the follow button as well and follow us on Twitter. So that's how we sort of structured this ad here. Now, let's go ahead and select it. We'll hit next. Oh, and I should mention, users' timelines is the default setting because that's what Twitter is. That's like 90% of Twitter is the timeline. Okay, but you can also choose to sneak your ads into profile pages and tweet detail pages, which we'll leave selected to increase our reach. Next. All right, so here we are. We can review the details of our campaign and ad group and our audience targeting one final time. We've got our date, we've got our budget, we've got our pacing, we've got our ad group, we've got our audience right here, we've got our placement that we chose, and right here is our actual ad, okay? So a compelling image that sort of pops out, plus a question. Our favorite song to play during piano lessons was such and such. What was yours? All right, so hopefully we'll actually get some comments, some answers, and people choosing to follow us on Twitter so we can increase our organic reach. And that is pretty much the only reason that we're running this ad. That's our campaign goal. We would hit launch campaign. And there you go. Now, once your campaign is published, you're going to want to regularly monitor these stats right here. Okay? You want to keep an eye particularly on impressions, so your overall ad spend, your results, which in our case, once again, we're looking for follows, your results rate, which is going to be a combination of impressions and results, your cost per ad result, which is very important. That's sort of your main metric. That's going to be a combination of your overall spend and the results, and how that's matching up against your daily budget. And of course, keep an eye on how much money you have left as well. But you're going to want to adjust your ad groups and your angles and so on and so forth if you're noticing that the performance that you're getting here is not quite up to par and you're not getting your best bang for your buck out of the budget that you're putting into your ads. So make sure you come back here, monitor your campaigns, compare them with each other, compare them with past data, and keep on top of this so that you are actually getting the results that are best for you for every single cent that you put into Twitter's pockets. But that is it, guys. We have successfully gone through the entire process now of planning out, setting up, and launching our first ad on Twitter.